All right. You ready, Richard?
Yeah.
Right.
Hello.
Oh, okay. I always forget that you can't minimize during recording. Anyway, welcome everyone to the final episode of the Fusion Podcast, at least for this season. I'm your host, Kevin Bacon, and with me today is our current Fusion president, Richard Magdaluyo. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. My name is Richard Magdaluyo. I'm currently a fourth year computer engineering student. I'll be graduating this June, and I'm currently Fusion's president. Nice to meet you if we haven't yet.
Yes. Our current president, he has, in my opinion, some really good music taste. And along with that, kind of you know, out there, Fusion likes to do icebreakers, and today's icebreaker for you is what's your favorite music to listen to at the moment?
Oh, all right. We're starting off with hard questions. I see. I'm just
Yes.
kidding. There is one song that I had like a good reaction to recently where I saw the music video.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Let me find what it's called. It's a Korean song. You'll
Mm-hmm.
find out why I listen to Korean music along this podcast, maybe. It's called Happen by Haze.
Hmm.
Uh,
Okay.
yeah, it's pretty
Cool.
good. I like the bass, what do you call the bass notes
Okay.
in the song? Yeah.
See. I see. I'm more partial to Japanese pop, but I'm willing to give it a listen if it's within your taste.
Yeah.
Uh, cool. All right, so let's get into the meat and potatoes, as they say. You mentioned it already. You're gonna be graduating. How does that make you feel with like all 4 years, passing by?
Yeah. It's a great question for me to start reflecting. Well, I've been reflecting since this is spring quarter. And then it is now week 10. For context, this is being recorded week 10. That is the last week of lectures for this academic year. And with all that said, things are coming to an end. Um, and for some context, I have other commitments on campus. I'm working as a marketing intern for an office that's ending soon, like in 2 weeks. I was working as a Generation Study Abroad ambassador for the Study Abroad Center, which ended this Friday, last Friday. So we had our last work meeting, everything was done. And today, Fusion had our last board meeting, which is over. With all that said, with all the endings that I've mentioned, it hasn't hit me quite yet because unfortunately or fortunately, I still have classes to take care of. Um, and I don't know if this is just the way I coped with it, but I made a lot of plans with friends post graduation, just not just friends, but also family to like go on trips and just catch up. So right now, I'm still chugging along. There's still a lot of stuff to do, and well, I know that it will hit me once June 12th. Oh, 13th. Our physical graduation for some of us hits. I'm sure I will feel something. um, but I don't want to predict what that feeling is going to be. So right now, I'm just enjoying it. Yeah.
I see. I mean, for context, for those who may or may not know, me and Richard actually met our first year. We were both in the same dorm. For context,
Mhm.
and yeah, it's kind of crazy, like me specifically, interviewing you for this because it's kind of like you know it, it, we we've had a lot of like we've shared a lot of time with each other. I mean,
Yeah.
like
I mean, we didn't even meet through Fusion, right?
yeah,
That's
that's the
that's the
weirdest part.
best part. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now here we are today.
Hmm.
So,
I get to interview hashtag my president. What
uh,
an honor. What an honor.
uh,
And
I
low
get
key,
interviewed by,
the person who got me into fusion, not gonna lie.
uh,
So kind of a weird feeling. But
I'm getting interviewed by one of my first friends in college, so this is pretty crazy to me. There you go. Let's keep reciprocating.
yeah, let's keep reciprocating
Yeah,
feelings. No,
yeah,
but I guess like just for my 2 cents in terms of like graduation, because I will also be graduating at the same time as Richard. Uh,
yeah,
so like, I mean, it's kind of weird considering that it's like I think for all of us who are graduating this year, it's like we've just finished a whole year of like virtual learning, and like it just feels weird. And like I'm glad that like we are able to graduate in person. Like it's like such a nice feeling. But at the
yeah.
same time, it's like fourth year. I thought coming into fourth year, I was gonna be like, okay, this is gonna be the year where like I make the most memories. And granted, I have, despite circumstances, but like it kind of feels almost feels weird to be sent off like this.
Definitely. Yeah,
For sure, for sure. You know, mood is kind of weird
kind
right
of a
now.
little bit.
Oh, just a
Yeah,
little bit weird, a little sentimental. So I guess we could think about more uh happy slash, more exciting stuff. Uh
hmm.
as we can see from your Zoom background, that is
Oh,
definitely not someplace in California, I'm assuming.
it
And
is not.
yeah, I was just wondering about your study abroad experience and what was your biggest takeaway from it?
Okay. Yeah. So for those of you who might not know, I studied abroad in South Korea at Yonsei University in fall of 2019. And as Kevin said, this photo was taken from a trip while I was abroad. Let me just, I guess, remove myself from it a little bit here. Oh, that's not it. That's a bunch of boxes that we don't need to see. Okay, cool. Yeah, so this was taken at like the summit of Hallasan, which is the tallest mountain in Korea. Um, you can see we were above the clouds, which was kind of crazy. And this was like the culmination of, I think, a bunch of hikes over 3 weeks. Uh, Started in Seoul, just looking around. I ended up hiking the tallest one in Seoul twice. And when my friends and I went to Jeju, which is an island south of Korea, I was like, hey, let's climb the tallest mountain in this country, all right? And they're like, but why? It's like, because it's fun. And they're like, okay, sure. um, yeah, so we spent 8 hours. Well, the climb up top was only like 4, but the whole trip was 8 hours going up and down this mountain. Um, so that's just a little bit of a, what's it called? Poster story for study abroad and
Mhm.
what you might be able to do. But as for what my biggest takeaway from it was, it honestly okay, my takeaway affected the way I looked at this year. So this might be interesting. Um, while I was abroad, I would say the biggest thing to me was everything was new. It was like I was a first year at at UCI, but
Mhm.
I sort of have an idea what I want myself to be. Right. I had
Mhm.
goals in mind of like I have 4 months to do what I want, and that's it. Right. After
Mhm.
this, I'm done. And with that, like breathing in the back of my neck almost every day, like because every day that passes is one less day within that 4 months. Like I'm not saying
Mhm.
I was stressed over it, but I was always reminded of
Mhm.
that fact. And I adopted like a lifestyle of, just trying things just because they're fun, just trying things because I can.
Mhm.
I would say before studying abroad, I try things because I know that the outcome would be fine, like that there was safety in the outcome. Studying
Mhm.
abroad, I was like, whatever happens, happens. I'm not saying I did like dangerous things, right? But I'm
Mhm.
saying, some places I've never been to, right?
Mhm.
I don't know what that's going to be, right? But it's on the way to somewhere else anyway, so why not just stop by? It's like
Mhm.
more spontaneous. And my biggest takeaway was that I enjoy that. I enjoy,
Mhm.
trying things without knowing what's going to happen. and being responsible for the outcome, right? Like being
Mhm.
responsible for, hey, okay, you know, let's not go to that area next time, right? Like let's be
Mhm.
more prepared. Let's go back and just regroup.
Mhm.
And the main reason why I say that drove this year is because that's exactly what we did throughout this whole weird year was what's going on, right? The
Mhm.
only thing we can do is try things and be responsible for what happens after, right?
Mhm.
This meeting might not have attendees because we've never done it before. Thankfully, that never happened. Um,
Thank God.
but it's a weird mindset. Not weird. It's a mindset that I never thought I would have to just do things
Mhm.
and see what happens because that's very spontaneous. It's very against what my academic approach, where it's like you can't fail. You just can't fail. Like don't try something if you're not going to be able to complete it, right?
Mm.
But you should, because that's where good things actually happen.
No, I
Yeah,
100% see that, and I was glad to be part of that experience with you. Just trying stuff out. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, you know, learning from it and seeing if we could either try it again in like a different format, or even just like get something out of the experiences that aren't always like successful.
yeah. Definitely. I mean, we
But
started this podcast this year
yeah,
just
honestly,
as a reference. Yeah, we didn't know how it was going to be taken. So
exactly. I didn't think we were gonna do this many episodes. Nah,
here
just
we
kidding.
are.
And now
Right?
here we are, and it comes full
Yeah,
circle.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, just a lot of the stuff that we've done this year is just like just out there. I mean, like, you know, I guess another thing, you know, Fusion merch, like we've been
yeah,
like doing all this stuff like in lieu of not being able to do in-person, fundraisers. Like
yeah.
we just transitioned straight into, selling merchandise that had the Fusion brand, and like, creating merchandise that could be sold, not even like, even if we go back to in person, like it's still something that is now under the Fusion name,
Yeah.
something that we could keep on working on regardless of whether or not it's online or not.
See, I like this aside because I get to show off the bucket hat that are put.
Yeah. And the
Look at
pin,
this thing.
look at this
I have a
pin.
fidget spinner.
Yeah, exactly. See,
There's
look
so
at
much stuff. Yeah,
dude, this is basically an ad break, but
it's an ad.
it's an ad in the middle of your video. But
Just I just don't won't say the price.
yeah, we won't say the price, and unfortunately, there's no coupon code. But if you're watching this podcast, support Fusion. You should get some merch, get some Fusion drip, as they say.
Ooh,
Ad
yeah,
break over. Anyway,
yeah.
I mean,
Thank you.
yeah, I mean, circling back to your experience with studying, abroad, and like specifically, I guess something I wanted to hit on was like, not being afraid of like doing things that aren't within, your comfort zone slash, just in your schedule. Because like I think for me personally, from where like the times I've traveled, I think the worst thing is when you have a set schedule in mind, because it's kind of like you're kind of limiting the scope of like what you can do, because you're like, okay, I'm gonna hit this spot and then this spot and then this spot. It's like, why do that when you could like, start in one place, wander around, and like find like those hidden gems that make you remember the place?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I love traveling like that and having the time to just be like, oh, what is this next to this museum? Let's
Yeah,
go.
no, exactly.
Yeah,
Like, there's nothing wrong with having like set things to do. That's not what I'm saying. I think it's more just like you're in vacation, and like, you're setting time, or like even if you're studying abroad, you're gonna have time for yourself. And I feel like if you just choose what you're gonna do, it's kind of like you could easily just, walk around. Like walking around in any new city that I have never been to is like some of the funnest times I've had, like
yeah,
traveling. Just like, and engross yourself within the place and the culture, and just like,
yeah. I
hmm
would say just to kind of add my thoughts, is your itinerary should have starting points, not the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which I'll just also talk about the year. I know each quarter has like its own traditional meeting for the most part for Fusion. But like I said last year, you know, we shouldn't just do all traditional meetings every week,
Mm-hmm.
which again, fortunately or unfortunately, we were forced to not do anyway because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
But again, those traditional ones became starting points, like their guide, and it's like, oh, what do we do from here?
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's a little bit exciting but scary. So
Mm-hmm. Shout outs to the people that hosted NSO. Uh, myself, Francis, and Lord Jean. NSO online was both like the most exciting and the most scared I've been hosting any meeting, because it's like, news NSO, new student orientation, basically is like, it's like the biggest thing in order to get new members to, like, come into the club. So it's like you had to make a really good first impression, and like starting off with the fact that, oh, everything's online now, by the way. It's like, oh, great. We can't do
yeah,
our typical like starting meetings, but we did what we can, and
yeah,
we got people that stayed, and we're like,
yeah,
that's good.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Transitioning on to the next question, I guess, is how did you deal with productivity during the times, during this year, I guess, with COVID, balance of work, self-care and stuff. Just like anything you have to say, like productivity wise, like how you kept yourself productive.
Yeah. Um, it's varied between the quarters since quarantine started. I would say my best quarter was actually the first one.
Hmm.
Um, so spring 2020. Just because I found myself using that time where I don't have to walk to class or do anything to just kind of work out, like at home,
Hmm.
just body weight. But it was really consistent. I haven't been that consistent since I left Korea, so I've been off for about 3 to 4 months until spring quarter.
Hmm.
But then life happens, and I I have to admit, spring senior year, I took up maybe more than I should have bit, but I mean I managed to do all of them. But in terms of productivity, I had to scale back on a lot of things. I think this spring 2021 is the most prime example of that. Usually academics, I I just put in all the time that I can into academics. Just study, 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 get that A.
Hmm.
But this quarter, I'm like, there's no way, right?
Hmm.
There's no way I'll get that A without a curve, just because I have other stuff that I care more about.
Hmm.
Not to say that academics should be your second priority, but this is my last quarter in Fusion. This is my last quarter as a UCI student. So there's other things that I put on top of that list, right?
Hmm.
Um, I guess an example would be like, should I work on a FusionCon video or should I start on my project early? There's no way I started that project earlier than I should have, because at this point I just did not want to.
Hmm.
Not to say that everyone should follow that. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that either. I'm saying you will face certain times in your academic career where you have to make a choice, and that your priorities shift. And in terms of measuring productivity, I just keep it. If I can keep it simple, which was what winter 2021 was for me.
Hmm.
I just rank things in terms of enjoyment.
Hmm.
Uh, I want to do this because it's fun at this moment.
Hmm.
That's really it. I
Okay.
think that should be a goal. Like if you can do that with all of your commitments, I think you're in a good place.
Definitely. I mean, like, at the end of the day, it's kind of like, especially when you're when you're here at UCI for 4 years, you're kind of just like, you know, your priorities do shift depending on, what happens and whatnot. And it's just like, I think like the biggest, like the thing I got out of that was just like, just do things that you enjoy and like try to get something out of it. Like, you know, maybe your number one priority isn't academics and it's like, for example, me, like, there definitely been times where it's like fusion over academics. And it's like, I enjoy fusion, did board. And it's like, you just had to make sure that you get something out of, the time you're putting into whatever you're enjoying,
Yeah.
for sure. All right. Next thing, you know, COVID is starting to die down and people are starting to, be able to integrate back within, how society was back then, a year from now, like, or yeah, year from now, I guess. So I guess my question to you is, what's the biggest thing you're looking forward to do after COVID is like under control?
Uh, to be honest, just seeing friends. I mean, at the time of this recording, uh, our board had a photo shoot, just I think a day, yeah, just yesterday. Um, and man, like this is the first time we saw each other in person, like all of us just together. That's so fun. Like I can't even put it into it's just so fun. Um, yeah, like seeing people like just or being with people just in person, just to do whatever, like eat anything really.
Hmm.
I'm sure some of us have been more fortunate to have done that more frequently.
Hmm.
Um, whether or not you should have, but yeah, like it's just I think it's the vaccine is a blessing, and for those of you who can see people now, go for it. It's fun.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. What about you? What are you looking forward to?
I mean, I think you hit the nail in the coffin on this one. I mean, like Richard said, yesterday was like a fever dream, and it was like just in recent, like honestly, like this year is like one of the greatest like days I've had in like a while, just getting to hang out with people. Like, we see each other on Zoom, like we are right now doing this interview, but it's like just there's just a different energy and like a different feeling you get when like you see each other, in person. And like we tried our best. I mean, we tried our best, to emulate that within, a virtual format. But like, you know, for those who are still deciding whether or not to be part of Fusion, next year in person, 100% do it. If you think this was, a fun experience, you'll get that times 100 in person, like
Yeah,
100%.
I mean,
So,
like just simple things is like you can high five people, you can shake hands, you can hug people. Like you don't do that in Zoom.
yeah.
You know, you can't acknowledge each other's like achievements as well in Zoom. It's
Hmm.
just different in person.
Yep. It's
Yeah.
just, it's the little things. And also being able to like, yeah, like you said, like congratulate people on like victories, hug people that you haven't seen in such a long time. Just like those little things just add up. And it's just like, granted, you know, there are good things with everything being online. Like Richard said, you have more time or you have more time that was allocated to, walking to class, walking between classes, walking back home. At the same time, it's just like those moments, you know, just being able to hang out with people is just that's part of the college experience, I would say. Like you're in
Hmm.
a massive university with like a bunch, like thousands of people, and like just being able to interact with people is just like you don't get that. Like it's really hard to get that kind of like, you know, that amount of people in the same place after college.
Yeah, no, it's completely different. And I guess one more thing is food, right? Not just eating at the same place, but Like remember when you got two different things with your friend because you want to try both, and you just kind of like, hey man, you want to bite? Like that's so just fun, like trying out stuff like with friends, just being outside.
Hmm.
I miss that, right?
Hmm. Never have I thought I would have missed Korean barbecue from the amount that I've eaten freshman year.
Uh,
But like, you know, there's just something different about cooking meat in person with, you know, your friends, and like it's just a different atmosphere. Like
yeah,
I miss that.
communal food, man. That's food is community. I'm
You
telling you.
food is community.
Food.
Dude, want
The F in
that.
fusion does not stand for food.
I want that on a shirt. Food is community.
It's community.
All right, cool. Moving on, I guess. Now gonna be shifting towards, our favorite topic on this podcast, fusion. So, I think a bunch of us would want to know, how did you get your start in fusion, and what was your reasons for coming back?
Yeah, okay, I can tell you the origin story. It was yeah, 2017. Wow, 2017.
Oh.
Um, I think I went to AF twice that day. And then the second time it was late and I was tired. I was just kind of like, oh, what is this? I want to go back. But someone handed me a flyer for Fusion, and I was like, I guess. Um, sorry, this was Dom too. So this is my suits. Shout out.
Let's
Um,
get it.
President 2018 or 2019, my first year of being board. But yeah, after that, I went to the meeting. I think this was NSO, New Student Orientation. We were building catapults. The reason why I'm laughing is because our team did not build a catapult. Um, we built something to push the thing you're supposed to catapult across the room. But apparently, at the time for build meetings, they would like to find loopholes. I'm sorry, I'm exposing old Fusion, but this is funny to me. Um, the game became for like returning members is to find the loopholes within the rules and like try to break it. Um, my team won because we broke the loophole, which is a really weird long way of saying we cheated. But yeah, my team won. It was just funny. I like everyone. I did not know anyone there, but they were all friendly. Like everyone's just having a good time. Um, Eric, who was the president years prior, even just like lifted me up, like, "Ooh, like we won," because I was the one who rolled the thing across. And I was like, "This is kind of fun." And I just kept coming back, and then I met other people. I'll shout out Aliana and Josh. They're like the first few, and then the first year class we had Diana, Johnny. Shout outs to them, and Jared. But yeah, there was a lot of people that I just met, and then like all the older ones were all like just friendly, right? And I kept coming back because the friends I met would also wanted to go back. But in terms of Fusion itself, I think what kept me coming back is there's no specific event I want to say. It's really just having that space to be like, hey, y'all going to Fusion tonight? Like, you want to go to Fusion? And something to talk about, like Kevin might be able to say, because I'm like, hey, Kevin, you heard of Fusion? Like, we met at the dorms, and then I'm like, yo, I'm going to this other place now, I'm sorry. Like,
And my response would be like, "No, I'm good." Head back to his room. At least for first year. That was definitely
uh,
first year me.
uh, but that's how it was, right? Like, I just kind of enjoyed it for like firsthand, and I was like, keep coming back just because it's a good place. Yeah.
Mm, no, for sure. I mean, on the subject of origin stories, I guess I could talk about mine a little bit. It's kind of
Yes.
funny because it's my second year, and it was also in AIF. I heard that my my guest over here, Richard, is part of board and is boothing. So me and my two other friends, I guess Omar and Omar, were like, "Oh, let's go visit him." And I was like, "Sure, why not?" So we go to the Fusion booth. I see my boy Richard, start having conversations, and in the corner of my eye, same person, I see Dom. She comes to have conversation with us, and I will never forget the first thing she asked me, which was, "Do you guys like clubbing?" And I was like, I was like, who is this person? And why are they asking if I like clubbing? I was like, and my mind was just like, "Richard, what kind of club are you part of?" Like just like split second.
That's my
But
president.
yeah, shout outs to Dom,
Shout out to
last guest
Dom.
on the podcast. Woo! But
Yeah.
I guess I got, that's not the right word. I got my in going to what is it? Bacon wrap hot dogs. I think that was like one of my shining
Ah,
that's that's
yes.
one of
I
my
remember
shining
this.
moments is you know, feeling as you do on campus, feeling kind of hungry, like you have like an hour break between class and you're like, I can't go back, like that'd just be a waste. So head over to the Bacon Wrap Hot Dogs booth, also known as the Fusion booth. Get
Mhm.
me one for two, two for three. So I got myself two hot dogs and a water for $3. Bring it back.
It's four
Anyway,
dollars. It's
yep,
$4 now,
yep.
but
Bring
yeah.
it,
Anyway,
bring it back. Anyway, but yeah, I'm just eating, and I just start pubbing it out. The hot dogs are really speaking to me that day, so I'm just pubbing it out to everyone. And yeah, I felt like just like, and the fact that everyone was like
all
so
home.
welcoming,
Uh-huh.
I feel like since everyone was so welcoming, like they try to make conversation with you, and it's like, even if you like, that's always the hardest part, is like starting conversation with like people you don't really know. And I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah, and I was just like, man, I could really see myself just being here. So yeah, after that it's like all history. Go to a meeting. I mean, the one that sticks out to me was the stress relief one, where I do not follow, Bob Ross's painting at all. And in fact, with my other table mates, we made a story with our paintings, and we like to see it. So we both have experiences of doing what we're not supposed to, and getting something out of it.
You know. See, Fusion forces you to think out of the box. That's a takeaway here.
Yeah, that's honestly the
Yeah.
takeaway
Yeah.
for those, especially back in person. You know, especially those coming back. Just make think outside the box. That's what
Yeah.
Fusion taught us.
If you like thinking outside boxes, there's not a lot of box. Well, there are a lot of boxes at Fusion, but there's a lot of opportunities to think outside of boxes. There you go.
Exactly. There you
There you go.
go.
Yeah.
That's We
It's
like
our ad break.
boxes. That's our second ad break. Blew up.
Okay.
Moving on.
All
Moving
right,
on
let's
past
go.
that is
Next stop.
next stop in the fusion, not lightning round, but fusion round, I guess, of questions is how did fusion contribute to your growth during your time in UCI? This could be both as
Hmm.
like a board member, or as like a general member, whichever.
Yeah. Um, I want to highlight my year as publicity director, which, now that I think about it, I technically was the first publicity director just because that's when we changed the name. Um, that's really all there is to it. But that experience, before that, right, I was into art, I was into drawing, primarily abstract art, and then moved away into a little more, I guess, graphics oriented. Don't have formal education, so take everything I say with a grain of salt. But that was like the first time I was like, hey, I want to do something for this club in terms of how we present ourselves visually. Um, and I mean, my board liked it. I liked the work that I did. And if you look back at it, it is a bit dated, just because we improved. I also have improved, and the reason why I say I have improved is because coming into my fourth year, I took up an internship with the Scholarship Opportunities Program. I think I mentioned this earlier,
Mhm,
which is marketing, creating graphics
mhm.
for the office, distributing that through social media, which is exactly what I did for Fusion when I'm getting paid for it. Um, yeah, and like just being able to talk so much about, hey, the process for like why would you create a banner this size or use these colors. Moving away from Fusion branding to UCI branding, right? Following that branding guide. Um, and the other things just from doing board is like organizing things, like having board notes. Um, is like I say having board notes because I was part of a design group on campus, like I don't need to specify which group, but when we were meeting, we didn't have notes. There's no reference to what we
Oh,
did the week prior. Yeah, like
ooh,
Kevin would know how important it is because he makes those for us, and that's why it's so important. Um, we would start with reviewing what we did, not like a class where it's actually productive, where you would say, this is what we established last time. No, you had to ask, what did we do last time?
mhm.
And I was like, you guys need notes. It's very simple. I'll give you a template. And yeah, they started using it, thankfully. Um, but yeah, you learn like a number of things of like how to organize like a team. This is gonna sound almost generic, but this is your gateway to being a better student and being more competitive. So in terms of how it contributed to my growth, kind of made me a little more professional, landed me a job. So doing board, talking to board members, there's a lot of opportunity here for you, and not just students, because we're not, I know the club is for students, but we got connections
Mhm,
for you to talk to. Like it's really like the best part of being in an organization is you have to talk to who we're talking to,
mhm,
right? And how to like talk to them. If you don't know how to talk to your professors, a lot of us do. I mean, just ask, right?
mhm,
Like everything is all about just asking.
mhm. I guess adding my 2 cents to that, just
Yeah,
asking is this. I mean, just this podcast in general is just like has really like opened me to like being, I guess like being able to talk more. I guess with people that I don't necessarily have that much, that much prior knowledge to, and like being able to like not be as nervous and like just have a normal conversation with just people that are older or more within their major, their profession, like despite the fact that I'm just I'm not I'm not even an engineer, and like talking to people that have been doing like engineering for like their 4 years graduating and like are already established within their field. It's just like being, you learn that, and it's just something that could be applied to like anything that you do. Like that's not just an engineering thing, it's just like being able to talk to people is like one of the biggest things in any kind of profession that you do.
yeah.
So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Communications. Yeah,
Communications.
that's why you were a good fit. Love how you started the podcast. It's
Yes,
great.
yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thanks, Richard. Now back to you at the studio.
All right.
I mean, okay. Moving
What do
on.
we have? Yes.
Yeah, moving on. I mean, guess this is a favorite of mine to ask everyone that's been part of Fusion. What's your favorite Fusion moment?
Oh, oh man. 4 years with
It's a long
a
time.
favorite moment. Ooh. Oh wow.
This is where the hard questions
Wow,
start.
it is a very hard question. Um, like going year by year, pulling out the albums of photos I have in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Uh wow, okay. Can I like do
You want to
one
do
per year?
multiple? You want to do one per year? I mean, like,
Just because
yeah,
it's kind of
just
fresh.
yeah, let's do it.
4 years is not that. Yeah. I would say first year was my favorite memory would be our end of the year banquet.
Mm-hmm.
This first banquet I've been to. And honestly, like, okay, so I was already gonna be a board member, announced at the banquet. I
Mm-hmm.
already knew that I wanted to contribute to Fusion as a board member at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I saw, you know how we do senior shout outs or senior speeches during banquets.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you're watching this and you're not familiar, we give graduating seniors like space and time to talk about their experiences, and like other people respond to that senior just to send them off. And one of them, Carlos, he's an alumni for a while now, 4 years, so some of you might not be familiar. And I barely knew him myself, but what made an impact to me was, well, number one, he was wearing a pretty cool board jacket at some point, so I was like, "Ooh, I kind of want that." Um, but like just hearing the number of people that like thanked him for like bringing them, him bringing them into Fusion and just like overall helping out throughout like their time, I was like, I just got here. I just got to this university. Like I'm a first year, but I want that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna lie, like yeah, like this is a bit of a self-centered thing to say, but being able to say I've made an impact in someone's life just by being around them, like that's crazy, right? That's crazy to say, and like it's not something I would like take credit for every day, like like I brought you in, like no, like obviously um that's not the feeling that I wanted, but just like having an impact, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
like I said, I've never had a leadership position in high school. I've never went out of my way to be part of like a community or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just friends, like we just hang out, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
But to put in the effort to reach out to strangers and be like, hey, come to Fusion because blah blah blah, you know
Mm-hmm.
and give them like a legitimate reason, like once they come, like show them what you were talking about, like what is it, walk the talk, if that's the right phrasing.
Mm-hmm.
Like that made an impact on me. Like I was like, oh, so that's what it looks like when
Mm-hmm.
you're part of a community, when you put in the time to help other people. And I'm like, I want to try that. I want to see what it takes to do that. um wow, I spent a long time for one moment. Okay, year two. Well, Kevin and I would know this. This isn't strictly Fusion, but it was with Fusion people. ZotCon/Packin.
Oh,
I
my
can't think
heart.
of any other day because the man I'm talking to started ZotCon, and this was his day. This was it, like the whole year. This was it was this day, and I was like, oh, this is cool. Like the moment I saw how many people there was in the line, I was like, oh, dang, like this is something else. I've never seen this before. Um, and then seeing all the performances, and like I couldn't even go to everything because I think I had limited time. I was like, oh man.
Mm-hmm.
And also because I had to go to Packin. Uh, so again, who are not familiar, ZotCon is UCI's in-house anime convention. Packin is Filipinx American Culture Night, and they both happen at the same day in
Yeah, they
2018.
did. Yeah, they did.
But I had fun. Kevin had his own. I mean, Kevin had fun too. I don't want to speak for the experience, but it was a long day. But it was so fun seeing like our fusion friends perform at Packin, and then like all of us. Well, not me. I wasn't that tired, but everyone just kind of like wanted, like a chill time,
Mm,
going over to Harbor House Cafe. Shout out to Josh for taking us there.
sure.
Aliana performed, and I think Anthony was with us too. So that group, I mean, it was just a fun day. That's it.
Mhm.
um,
I guess adding my two
yeah,
cents to all of that for
yeah.
perspective, I think that is the longest time I've stayed awake and have been doing like like productive stuff in like a span of time, and I think I still haven't recreated that. So if you saw me that day and you hanged out with me, I just thought it was a fever dream. Moving on.
Yeah. Uh, third year, shoot. Oh, Fancy Feast. Because I was abroad. I didn't know anyone after I came. Well, that's an exaggeration. A lot of the people I haven't been too close with just because I just met them that quarter. I literally just met them like that quarter. And it was my first, because unfortunately I was sick during that quarter for whatever reason. This is my first like full on meeting with like so many people. And I was like, oh, y'all are cool. Um, and yeah, I mean, like, and then a quarter later, I became the president, so that was kind of weird. um, yeah, fourth year, fourth year. Uh, this is a long year. Um, I'll just say AAF day two because, like, it was a weird day.
Mhm,
Um, and AIF did not reflect NSO. I'll just say that. The number of people, and I'll be honest, Anteater Involvement Fair did not have a lot of attendance, just in terms of numbers.
mhm.
And new student orientation was kind of like what was 5 times more. So it was a nice surprise. But day two, I'll shout out my students, John David Vermonte. He goes by JD. Uh, and I'm talking about this just like honestly, it was an impactful day. Just because it was just board members hanging out for like
Mhm,
a bit, and then this first year person just kind of hung out with us. At first, like because no one was there, honestly, I felt like I had trouble like talking because again, I was like, oh man, like not a lot of people here. Um, I mean, he stayed for like a while, and we got to know each other, and I was like, so it is possible, like you can get to know people virtually, like
mhm,
have a real connection. And I mean, from there, like Fusion 2020, 2021, just kind of it just happened. Like
mhm,
more people came, like it, like like just being honest, like as president, that was the test moment. I was like, what is this year gonna look like?
mhm,
And fortunately, it was like, oh, it's fine, right? Like,
mhm,
because one of the I don't remember which movie it's from, but like I think one of the quotes that drove me at that time was like, it only takes one person. Like,
mhm,
because like throwback to the making an impact thing, like for myself, like trying to make an impact.
mhm,
My mindset was like, if we can like make one person's year a little less, not COVID feely. um, like just one person, like just focusing on one person at a time, then we're
mhm.
good. And then it became like one person, and then boom, the whole year just started. And like
Mhm.
here we are.
Yes.
Sorry, that was like a little while, a lot of thinking back because it's still fresh for me.
Yeah,
The
for
4 years.
sure. I mean, yeah. I mean, you hit a lot of my favorite fusion moments, to be honest. Uh,
Do you have one? A
do
couple
do
you want to talk about?
who do I have a couple? I'll keep it short since this podcast might be a little long. Not gonna lie, but
Okay.
I mean, one that sticks out is winter. I think probably ooh, it's hard to choose between. the first and second time I went to winter retreat. Winter retreat in general is just like a great time of no sleep. I mean, it's a great time to hang out with a bunch of fusion people and interact and like just connect and just vibe. God, I'm sad I used that word, but yeah, it's just part of the English language now.
Okay.
Yeah, we're just vibing. But I think especially I guess this is more directed towards the people that are planning to continue with it being in person. Hopefully, you know, for fusion, it's just like winter retreat is like one of the best experiences I've had when it comes to like fusion. Like just being able to like connect with like not just the people that you already have connection with like friends, but especially meeting people that you wouldn't necessarily have had the time to like connect with. Like just those 2 days is just like a great way to like fully like keep those connections and like make them stronger, whether it's playing Switch, other festivities. It's just good times all around. And getting to see snow, oh no, just
Yeah.
something about that is just it's nice. And it's cold. I like the cold. But a
It's cozy
warning,
inside.
you won't get sleep. That's just how it is.
You can try.
You could
You can
try,
always
but
try. Yeah.
I mean, if you can be a driver, because you'll always get dibs. That's how it
Get the
works.
bed.
Get the beds. That's how it
Yeah.
works. But yeah,
That's us asking you to drive us to Big Bird next year. But anyway,
yeah, honestly. But
just kidding.
yeah, I think if anything, I mean, just real quick, it's like one of the biggest regrets I would say, like when it comes to like fusion, not being able to do
Mhm.
that this year, like especially
Ah, yeah.
in
That's
person.
our board. Yeah.
It's just it didn't seem feasible, and of course, with the state of how the world was then, it was just like the numbers didn't add up, and it was just like we just can't do it.
Yeah. We weren't allowed to.
Yeah,
For safety, of course.
yeah,
But
for safety, it's the number one thing. But yeah, I mean, if you want any bigger advertisement for winter retreat, it's just I'm planning to come back next year just for winter retreat, so I'm looking forward to that. No pressure, no
yeah,
new
you'll
fusion
get
board.
interviewed. You might get interviewed at the cabin. I'm just
Yeah.
kidding.
Ooh, bet if this continues from my successor. Anyway, for sure, for sure. Moving along. I guess
Mhm.
this is more of the final question for the fusion section of this podcast. Is what was your biggest takeaway from this year of fusion board?
Okay. Wow, it's a really good question. I want to talk about the leadership style I chose to employ this year, I guess. Um, and what I learned from trying that out.
Mhm,
Um, so coming in around what May? No, it's April 2020. It was early in spring quarter when I was like, you know what? I'll run for presidency. And the reason why I wanted to do president was because, and I keep saying this, because of the interns. Excuse me. At least the ones that I've met or the ones that I've heard of, they had a lot of drive, right? They had a lot of ideas for what they wanted to work on for the next year. So that was the baseline. We had a group of people who had strong intentions for what they wanted to do. And you saw this if you were there last year. If you were there 2019 to 2020, you would have seen this during the election season because every position or almost every position in executive board had like two candidates.
mhm,
So there were a lot of plans. They had a lot of ideas. And I knew that that would require a certain style of workflow. where I don't necessarily need to tell anybody to do things anymore. I did not really have to teach them how to do things because they were interns. They were familiar, and of course, not everyone on our board was an intern, but for the most part, all of I'll say you because Kevin's here. All of you had like an idea of what you wanted to do, at least one or two things. Because number one, you either had to say it in your platforms or tell us during the interviews. And from the results of both, all of you had at least one thing. And for me, the leadership styles I'm familiar with are from Dom and Sammy, and our boards were, structured differently. I think the main difference was, and I remember being told this, is putting members to work. Like, I have to take initiative.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I don't have to take initiative. I mean, of course I do in certain areas, but what I mean is all of you had initiative to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm.
And I think while I was working at Western Digital, I was reading like other articles. It's like, what is motivation? And it became very philosophical. But my takeaway from that was everyone has motivation. Like, and this was a prime example because, like I said, all of you had stuff you wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's just recognizing that it doesn't show all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, one thing was like, just because you don't show it in the meeting or like you look distracted doesn't mean you're not motivated. It's just this isn't the right place for you to show that. If
Mm-hmm.
you don't go to an event, right, that doesn't mean you don't care about being board member. It just means you have other stuff right now, but you did your work anyway, so it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Being really flexible in certain areas like that and like building trust and making sure that, you guys do what you want to do. That was my whole thing. It's like, what do you want to do? Like, I kept asking all of you throughout the year, like, what do you want? Like, how do you want to do this?
Mm-hmm.
And even for Fusion, like the conference for Fusion Con, like each event was handled by one person. My timeline was asking people if they had the time to work on what they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Every question, well, that's an exaggeration. I tried to make it so that the questions I would ask is either helping you set a timeline for yourself or just making sure that you are following what the timeline we established was,
Mm-hmm.
right? And in terms of what my takeaway was, like, this works to a certain extent. This works when you want people to be comfortable in their own decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And it works well and it works well for a team that have an idea for what they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
But on the flip side, because we're talking about takeaways, it detracts a little bit from your traditional team / collaboration. It's a very hard. I had a hard time pulling back, like saying, "Hey, let's work together a little more," because it felt unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times it's like, well, if one person can do it well on their own, why make a committee?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like, oh, it's just so that they will learn what that other person is doing. It's like they don't need to. And two, because they were so confident, they had so much stuff they wanted to do in their own decision, they don't have time
Mm-hmm.
to just kind of learn what the other person is doing. And this, as a team, it's a little odd not to know what everyone else is doing sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you get curious. And that made me the center point for the person who should be keeping track of everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
I put a lot of pressure on myself because sometimes I don't know what someone's doing because I haven't checked that Wednesday. I was
Mm-hmm.
going to check on Thursday just because of my own schedule, right? So in terms of like project management, it's really hard to keep track of, like, I had to find ways to keep track of everyone. And sometimes, towards the end, and just be fine with straight up not knowing, because then collaborations happened
Mhm.
almost under the hood.
Mhm.
Uh, and it would be shared during board meetings where people would be like, oh, like I had this person, like I think, you know, Francis, our treasurer, would
Mhm.
collaborate with a lot of people just because funds are used by everyone. And like the updates would be like, oh, Francis is working with, say, Lord Jean for like the fidget spinners. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool.
Mhm.
Um, so I almost just kept being further away from the actual hands-on work.
Mhm.
And it evolved from keeping track of like one individuals like
Mhm.
working on their own stuff or individual decisions
Mhm.
to keeping track of like groups like with arrows of like, oh, this group is working with this group. And for myself, biggest takeaway is that leadership styles are fluid. um, and if you're hearing this and thinking of joining board or whatever, you have to find it on your own. um, there's
Mhm.
no one way to lead properly. And yeah, there will be bumps. That's pretty much it.
Mhm.
Pick one and be responsible for picking it.
Mhm.
That's your job as a leader, is to make a choice, buckle up, and see where it takes you.
Mhm.
Going back to that, yeah.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I could talk about a little bit being part of this board. Uh, definitely like I would say all of us individually are very motivated, like within our own respective, positions, and that's like in hindsight, it looks like that's great. Like motivation is like the number one thing that like drives a board. But like as you stated, it's like since you're so motivated to do the stuff within your own position, it's hard to like, you don't really see or like honestly like think about what other people are doing because everyone's so individualistic. So, depending on the people you're working with, it's like that could be either a good thing or a bad thing. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But at the same time, that's like one of the downsides is like
Yeah,
you don't necessarily have like know exactly what everyone's doing, but you're focusing on your own stuff and getting it done.
yeah.
But I guess the number one thing that we learned from this year and my biggest takeaway,
Mhm.
just in general, this whole, online year is just flexibility. Like,
Ah,
I mean, that was like the number one thing. That was our number one, like, first thing we had to answer was like, all right, how are we going to transfer Fusion into the online format? And we had to be really flexible with like a bunch of stuff that we wanted to do and like try to find ways to like integrate it within a reasonable amount of like effort and like time in order for it
yeah,
to be as close to the Fusion experience in person as it can be online.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I think,
Flexibility.
yeah, flexibility, and I think we succeeded, to be honest. Like put our
I would
best
hope
effort into.
that, yeah.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But yeah, do Fusion board, honestly. Like I guess my biggest thing is just like Richard, I wanted to give back to like a club that gave me so much. If you if you want, you could see you could see my platform, and like that's like one of the biggest things I put there is like, it's just like if you like Fusion and like, it's a club that like you always go back to, you could benefit so much from just knowing how the behind the scenes of Fusion works and like being able to like work with you know, a group of same minded individuals like our board. Shout outs to everyone in our board. Like we freaking we killed it this year, dude.
We
Like
made it.
honestly. We made it.
Yeah, all of you, every single one of you,
All 11 in you and also the interns right now. Like honestly. Like,
interns. Yeah,
like we were like, how are we gonna teach our interns, like online? But they stuck through and they like helped us. And it's just like couldn't have done them There, we couldn't have done it without them, honestly.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Uh,
and feeling a little sentimental a little bit,
we'll
I
do
guess
shout outs in the end or something.
we
Yeah.
could, but I guess final question I got for you for this podcast is what's your plan now, and what's your biggest goal at the moment?
Yeah. Biggest goal, graduate. I mean,
Yes,
just
sir.
2 and something weeks away.
Mm,
Just walk that stage and feel that feeling of, I was gonna say completeness, but that's weird. Of being done, of like completing your or my
mm-hmm,
academic journey for now.
mm-hmm,
Um, and in terms of plans, I I'll be honest, I don't have plans to find an engineering job right now. I'm just being completely honest. I don't know if anyone relates to this, of like just being, finding things outside of your major that you actually like.
mm-hmm,
Saying this as a fourth year of course feels a little weird, but you know, my parents and friends have been supportive, so that's why I want to share it. The position I'm looking at right now are actually related to marketing because it feels natural
mm-hmm.
for me, especially since I'm interning as a marketing or admin. Sorry, my title for that job has changed so many times. But yeah, lead marketing intern now. But yeah, so but I still have like plans, of course, to go back into a more technical role, maybe.
Mm-hmm,
Um, Currently talking to my supervisor, talking to other like career related references about my plans, just get an idea of like, am I on the right track?
mm-hmm,
So in short, no solid plans yet. Have had interviews though,
mm-hmm.
so I'm leaning to that industry, or industries a weird word to use, that role of like marketing planning coordinator, whatever uh actual title is. um yeah, on the more fun side, like I said, trips, camping trip, uh, other things with family after, and
Mm-hmm.
seeing friends around Irvine.
Wow.
Keep it simple, keep it fun.
Yes, sir.
uh,
Nice, nice. Uh,
would you like to share yours or?
oh, okay. I mean, for those who have been following the podcast, I've kind of answered this question, but there have been some updates, so it'll be a little fresh this time. Just like Richard, I want to graduate, walk on stage, do the whole shebang, take pictures with people that I care about, Richard, and
Oh,
family. That's it. Not just kidding.
whoa, whoa,
No, no,
whoa,
no,
whoa.
no, no, no.
Hold on. I can't.
I'm joking. I'm joking. But I jest, as they say. But yeah, just being able to walk on stage, I thought that was out of, the equation by the start of this year. It's like, no, we're just not gonna have in-person graduation. Like that's just I just accepted that fact. But the fact that we're able to is like, silver lining, like with this whole year. And in terms of like biggest goals, I guess, or like you know, what's the plan now? I decided uh kind of recently that I'll be heading with my friends up to Seattle for uh undetermined amount of time. Just you know, seeing a place outside of California and just seeing how it's like. Because I don't know about you, being inside, like being in California, like basically my whole life, kind of made me want to, venture out, like go to Seattle or something. And yeah, it'll be the first time I'm of the outside of California and still within the United States. So it's like I'm really
Yeah,
excited. So
let's go.
we'll see. We'll see. In terms of like stuff I want to do in Seattle, it's up in the air. I'm trying to look at options there. I mean, best case scenario is like I try to I find work there and like
Yeah,
but at this point it's like I don't know, but I'm just hopeful that it'll bring me more opportunities and will give me a bunch of experiences I could I could benefit from.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's like a little bit of a loop back to the start. Going to say, Alice, just to start,
Mm-hmm.
right? You
Yeah.
don't have to map out the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I'm studying abroad, but not really.
Not really.
But yeah, I mean, with that, I mean, I have a little, you know, kind of closing thing, considering this is the last podcast for, could I say season one? I mean, who knows? Like, for this
Sure.
project, season one of this project. So
Yeah.
that implies that, next year, successor has to continue it with season two. Nah, I'm just kidding. Nah, no pressure. But it'd be cool though. But I mean, with that said,
Yes.
thank you, Richard, for being the final guest for this podcast for season one. Uh, I mean, just a little aside, this has been an amazing project to work on. Like every person I, talked to brought me like different perspectives and like made me like, I feel like I've gained so much from all these podcasts. And I hope that the people that I interviewed also got the same thing out of it that I did. And yeah, I mean, my hope is this, project to be maintained, you know. I would say it's my baby a little bit, but whether it evolves or it stays the same, up to the person who's my successor. But yeah, I mean, do you have any shout outs you want to do, Richard, before we close it out?
Sure. Shout outs to our current board. Um, I'll say it on record. Ouija board. Got me. Also storyboard if you want that route. Shout outs to the interns this year. Thank you for both of those groups for just making the year run as smoothly as possible. I'll also just shout out all of the program leaders, not leaders, but yeah, mentors, mentees, fam heads, engineering project leads, members. Basically, if you were in Fusion this year, shout outs to you. Shout outs to you for joining. Um, Shout outs to previous guests for coming. All were great. And yeah, I mean, last shout out to Kevin for starting this year. Like, and yeah, thanks for having me.
No problem, no problem.
Yeah,
I think, since the very beginning, I kind of wanted this as like, the final one because it's like definitely like, a reflective kind of podcast for sure. And it's like something that I think everyone can, benefit from hearing and like watching, it's just how this year has gone. And yeah, I mean,
yeah,
on that note, uh, I'm gonna do it like they do as like, end the season kind of thing. I've been your host, Kevin Bacon. Thank you for having me and hope to see you guys next season. All right, bye bye.